So I have a Marshall JVM410C that is powering on. It's lighting up, but there's no sound coming out. So I checked the tubes in the back and they were cold. So I'm gonna have to open this baby up and take a look at it. I think I know what I want to check first, but we'll see when we get in there. Well, we pull off the back cover. I think there's 4 screws there. Another 2 on the metal grate. Don't forget about these 2 angled ones. And then the 4 on the front will release the chassis from the cabinet. So I'm going to pull this chassis out. It is really heavy, especially to pull straight up like that. And I'm trying to be very careful not to touch the circuit board. There's a whole bunch of bad things that can happen to you in there, and we'll talk about that in a second too. Once you get it out, it'll sit on top there, pretty snug on the cabinet. Here's a look at the circuit board. You see there's a bunch of fuses. There's like 5 or 6 right there on the end. But there's 2 in particular that I want to get a look at, and they're right there in the middle. Those are tied into the heating elements that make the tubes get hot, so I want to check them out. What you're going to need for this is a multimeter and a capacitor release pen. It'll remove the stored energy that are in the capacitors. If you don't have one of these, maybe you should stop, or if you don't know what the purpose of that is, then you really have no business being inside this amp. I can show you the voltage that from some of these capacitors. Some are more than others. Keep in mind 120 volts, I think, could possibly kill someone. 240 would most likely do it. So the bigger this number is, the more dangerous it is. So I'm showing you some of the capacitors there. But with that, with this capacitor discharge pen, we can get the stored energy out of there. Remember, the energy is stored in there whether it's plugged in or not. But you can see the number go right to 0 after just a second or 2. So I got my fuses out now, and I'm going to check them out. What I want to see is the signal pass through here. So I want to see close to 0 or 0 ohms. And this one looks good. Going right to 0. Nothing wrong with that fuse. Let's check the other one. Well, let me move this around. Okay, there we go. I think we found the problem. This one is no bueno. So I'm gonna replace the bad one, and I'm gonna reuse the one that's in good shape and save my spares for another time if I need this again. So I'll pop them in there. Keep in mind, if you notice, I'm keeping one hand outside of the circuit board. It's kind of a good rule to keep one hand in your pocket so you don't complete the circuit in there. What I'm looking for now is some glowing tubes, and it looks like we got them. They're heating up just fine, and about a minute or so they will be too hot to touch. So this is good news. Let me just fire it up, do a quick test, run my fingers across the strings of guitar, make sure I got sound. If we got sound, we're in good shape. There we go. So it seems like that problem's solved. Now, I bought this amp used, so I have no idea how old the amp is. I guess I could look it up, but I have no idea how old the tubes are. But they look like they're from Marshall, so they're probably the original ones. There may not be anything wrong with the tubes, but for a peace of mind, I've been wanting to change all the tubes out anyway. So they just came in the mail yesterday, and I'm popping these out. It's Important when you're pulling these out to go straight up with a slight wiggling motion. If you snap any of those pegs off in there, you're in for a bigger repair. That's a preamp tube there. So get them out and get them ready. This part you kind of want to take your time a little bit with. Line up the pins with the slots in the socket and do not force it. When it's in the right spot, it'll feel like it's in the right spot and it'll kind of sink in there, but you definitely don't want to force it in there and break something. So let's speed this up a little bit. Two, three, four, five, and here's a cap for noise interference. Some people say they're not necessary at all. Some people say they are, but it came with the amp, so I'm putting it back in. So that's the preamp tubes. Now I got 4 power tubes to replace. Got brand new ones. I have several tube amps. This amp has the most amount of tubes in it because of the most of the features and the 4 channels and things. There we go. Power tubes in. Let me quick eyeball them up. Quickly check. Got some signal. Yep, we got sound. Let's turn this baby over. Now, anytime you change the tubes, you have to bias the amp. There's a 3-pin connector. That's a terrible picture, but one on the left side is for the left channel. The second one in the middle is for your common, and 3 is for the right channel. I'm going to hook up an alligator clip with 14 gauge wire, 1 common and 1 lead on the left side, and adjust them with those 2 potentiometers right there till I get the reading that I want. Now, Marshall biases the bias is kind of cold from the factory at a 34 or 35. I think I'm going to go just a little bit hotter at 37. And the trick to this is to go back and forth. It's very sensitive, so even touching it with the screwdriver changes the settings. So you make a small adjustment, let it stabilize, and then keep going back and forth, right to left, because when you change the right, it changes the left a little bit. And again, I figure right there is about good for both sides. So now I'm going to button this up, secure the chassis, put my backing on and my grate, and then the fun part, get to fire this thing up and test it out for real. Perfectly working condition JVM410.